Okay, I think looks like most people are joining. So we'll get started. This is the first of four webinars that Independent RX and Live Oak are going to do together. This one's all about multi-ownership. So we brought a couple. I mean, Poumil is an owner, multi-owner, and so is him. So we're going to kind of talk through, the journey to getting to owning them, managing them, financing them, et cetera. So we kind of put this one because the NCPA multi-ownership conference is this weekend, right? Starting maybe right now, actually. So it was kind of a good timing to go along with all of that. I'm Owen Bondurant. If you have never seen me, I'm a partner in Independent RX who helps people start, buy, and sell pharmacies, along with we provide accounting to pharmacies all around the country. I also happen to be a minority partner with Tim in a couple pharmacies. And so
hello, I'm Tim Clark. I'm a third generation pharmacist and have owned about 30 stores in my career. Still own two pharmacies, a long-term care pharmacy and a compounding pharmacy here in Dayton, Ohio. And Owen is my partner. Before that, his dad was my partner. So we've worked together for a while. We're also partners in Independent RX Consulting together. And I've got some good experiences on, I guess I'll say why and how to own multiple stores. So look forward to talking to Greco and Poumil and Owen about how maybe you can learn from us on what we did and the whys and why nots and how to hopefully make good decisions.
Greco?
Yeah, my name's Greco. I'm the Vice President and Senior Loan Officer of the Pharmacy Lending Vertical here at Live Oak Bank. I've been with the bank for 7 years now, and I've been in the independent pharmacy space for almost going on 12 years now, and always get excited about helping individuals achieve the dream of ownership. That's really what our goal is here at Live Oak Bank, to help people achieve their dreams of becoming owners. And sometimes that's their first store, but in this case, many times we're helping individuals buy their second, third, fourth, fifth, and build a goal of having a small empire. And we're excited about doing that well in both the financing and also helping them with understanding the roadmap and best practices to do so, which a lot of what we're going to be talking about today.
Thanks.
And Poumil?
Hi guys, so my name is Poumil Patel. I own two pharmacies in New Jersey. I've been a pharmacist for over 12 years now, and I bought my first pharmacy in 2017, my second pharmacy in 2020 with a partner who's on vacation actually. So I'm excited to join Owen and Greco on this along with Tim, and I look to give out good insight on this as well as get good insight on what it's like to be a multi-owner partnership.
That's great. Yeah. So maybe we'll expand on that. Paul, maybe if you could, how did you get into your, I guess, first store? Could you tell us just a little bit, like, how did you get there? Yeah. And tell us a little bit about that store, maybe.
Yeah. So, it's a funny story, actually. So I started working at CVS, so almost like 90% of the pharmacists initially. And after that, shortly after that, I was working at a long-term care pharmacy called PharmScript, and I was there for about 7 years. But third year into it, my partner Hardik Shah, he actually joined long-term care pharmacy too, and we worked together. We also graduated together from same school, but we didn't really talk much at that time. And past around like 2016, we started talking to each other about ownership and things like that, and and then we also learned about Owen's consulting services, and we thought it was the right time for us to sort of take that leap. It was obviously just like any business, it was a scary decision. So we just felt like we had, we kind of complemented each other as well as partners. So we took that leap, and we quit our jobs and bought the first pharmacy. And it was initially, I mean, I'm sure every owner knows that initially it was like putting in like 60, 70 hours each, learning everything on the job, joining which vendors to join, who to buy from, how the purchase pricing or everything. So we're learning from scratch. And so, that took it was fun to learn, but it took a lot of hours to learn too. And shortly, a couple of years, we started getting the hang of it, started learning. And then there was a vendor, one of the vendors, he came to us and we were just talking and he asked us, would you be interested in a second store? And we initially, I said, I'll talk to my partner, I'll get back to you. So we sort of talked about it a little bit, but we kind of wanted to wait on it and see if it was the right decision for us to get in the second store. But as the things started getting easier, we learned a lot more about the business. We thought it was a good idea for us to start getting into a second store, and we just took it from there.
Yeah, so that's great. Thanks for the background. Makes me
Yep.
think of a couple of things here. So these two stores, can you kind of describe them? Like retail, compounding, long-term care, both retail? Like, can you maybe
Yeah.
give the
So
audience the
the
perspective?
so the first store, it was, it's strictly just a retail store. We have a good we have a good mix of different types of PBMs and Medicare and things like that. But the second store is, we do compounding there, but it also, we do a lot of over the counter selling like vitamins and things like that on there. So they're the population there is a lot more holistic, versus the population at my first store where they're very RX medicine based.
Okay,
If
so
that
they're
makes sense.
different. They're different stores.
They're
Like
very different, very
okay.
different stores. Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that you felt like at one point you kind of got the hang of things. What does that mean?
So,
or
so,
do you really have the hang of things? I don't know.
so I bet.
Do any of us?
So, yeah, exactly. I mean,
What level of
you
ignorance
never
do
stop
you have?
learning, right?
Yeah.
Number one thing is you never stop learning. And I
Yeah.
think that's like the first thing that I learned, that you never stop learning when you get into the business. So, the hang of things was, what that meant, what that was supposed to, where I can go to find answers. That's what it was. It's not that, I don't need to know everything, but you need to know where you need to go to find answers, how to, and how to like look at the pharmacy from a business aspect, as an owner aspect versus like an employee aspect. So that was a tough change to make, but finally, like it took us time, but when we did it, it worked. It started, the picture became clearer for us.
Yeah, Poumil, that was something I noticed. A couple things you said. One is it definitely becomes a lifestyle, right?
Yes.
You're putting in that 60, 70 hours, and that's something that we tell a lot of individuals who are buying their first store. It becomes more of a lifestyle. How
Mhm.
long did it take before you guys decided, hey, listen, okay, we kind of got it hang, we figured it out. You grew into your second store. My first question to you is how long did that take? Did that take about a year before you made that decision, or was it more 6 months, or kind of how long?
So it was like a 6 to 9 months sort of period where it took us like, because we also, we needed to know how it fit. So initially it was me and Horik just working as pharmacists. So, we sort of had to figure out plans on, oh, okay, we need to get another pharmacist here, so that they can, a full-time pharmacist here. And then who's going to be working at the other pharmacy,
Right.
how we're going to work out, who'll be running things at either places, the PIC situation. So all these little nitty-gritty things we had to sort of, sit down. We did multiple meetings. We sat down for a few hours each meeting and sort of, drew out the plan.
Oh yeah.
So
I like
like,
that.
how it would work, like, how, if at each store, and then like scheduling wise, technician wise, everything.
Yeah. So, Tim, I feel like this is a topic that you would be able to expand on, like, getting a grasp on your business where you feel comfortable that, because I mean, basically, Paul, you had to step away, right? I mean,
Yes.
so,
Yep.
so
So-
like, I mean, I think that's a struggle for people, is that you're not hands-on, like, you have to trust
Right.
people, and I don't like.
I think
that
that,
is
what you're bringing up, which a lot of people forget about, and I'm glad Greco pointed it out earlier, is that you have to put in the work on that first store to understand that store and the intricacies of business, and find out your strengths and your weaknesses and where you're ignorant, when you're good, and then find counsel and get your answers, like you're saying, Poumil. That's really, there's no way to have multiple stores unless you're a really good single store owner. And then
Right.
that as your foundation allows you to then have multiple stores, because like you go back to lifestyle, the first part about being an independent pharmacy owner of one store, it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks because
Right.
you have to work a lot and you don't know a lot of stuff, but it's just like going to school. You have to put in the time to learn this stuff. And then that allows you then to be a multi-store owner if you want. Now, in my opinion, the only way you can become a multi-store owner is if you've got financial success at your first store. And the
Right.
ability of having that financial success allows you then to have multiple stores, because then you can kind of, set the, let's say your salary, you can put it that, okay, I need to make, again, I'm just going to say a number, I need to make $150,000. After I make that, the rest can go back into the business, but my family needs 150. Like, you can set what those goals are. And then as you grow, you're going to invest money into your business to go buy other things. And it could be that you've got one store, but you decide to add compounding or long-term care or whatever that is. But growing it is only going to happen if you've got good financial success. It takes some risks, but the benefits are like that your lifestyle can be different by the growth. For instance, like with me, I'm kind of strange. I'm not, I don't have any, I was raised Catholic, but I've got no Catholic reasons of why I have 8 kids. Okay. But, and that was my choice. Okay. That we have 8 kids. Now, in order to have 8 kids, or maybe you just like speedboats or fast cars, luxury vacations, or you just like to fish and take time off, everybody has to work and do those things so that they can, at the back end, have the lifestyle that they want. So, but in order to get to any of those things, whatever lifestyle that you're looking for, work is a part of it. And then working on things that make you money, I hate to say it, I mean, you have to have financial success to do all those other things. And so, I think, Poumil, you're a lot younger than me, so you're putting in the work now to do those next things. But the work is for yourself, it's for your family. And if you put in the work, hopefully one day you have more assets, you got a better job, so that you can spend time with your friends and family and do things. But you can't get away from the thing that pharmacy isn't this thing that you can, it's not a rental property.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a rental property that we, the great thing about rental properties is that you can go hire management companies to handle all those things, like the, property managers, right? There's no such thing as a pharmacy manager that you can hire to go do your stuff. And there's too many little things that someone can mess up when they're filling a prescription that you can lose money. So you do have to know that, like in property management, for instance, to be, if I don't have to use a property manager, I probably have to have really good skills of maybe drywall, HVAC, electric, that I'm okay at, doing landscape maintenance. But like being a pharmacist, you don't need to have all those, let's say those skills, but you need to have the skills of being able to run one pharmacy really well. And it doesn't mean you need to know everything, but you need to get other people, like again, in my experience, your bank is your greatest ally. For you, if you want to be a multi-store owner, like, Greco, I guess, tell me, would you rather give a loan to me to buy my second pharmacy or me to buy my first pharmacy? Which is in some ways easier for you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So first, I mean, obviously we have to help someone get their first one, right? And I always kind of start there. So and Poumil talked a little bit about what that is like. I mean, it's a big jump. It's a scary thing, but if you're buying one that does cash flow and support the debt, and to Owen's point, can kind of pay you what you need to keep the lights on, you can get in. If you have great ideas, maybe either you maintain the success that it's had or you incrementally grow it. Okay. Now you have a proven track record. And sometimes a question we get a lot is, how long does that have to look like? And it depends. It depends on the situation. But let's just say out of the box, you have a year of success. And that was pretty much what Poumil kind of had, right? He was getting up to about that year of success where you can show a track record of your management style or your innovation for growth. Then, Tim, to answer your question, it becomes so much easier to help an individual buy their second or maybe their third or however it goes on, because now not only do you have a track record of success, but you've also got to what everybody's talking about is a performing asset that you can now leverage, and leverage is not a bad thing if done properly. You know, a lot of successful business people that leverage their businesses to grow, and now you can enhance your lifestyle, you can enhance your business through either economies of scope, which was what pretty much Poumil did, right? Where he kind of got into a diversified revenue stream with compounding, or through scale, which is what we help some pharmacists do, because they're thinking, hey, if I can now have 3 retail pharmacies, maybe they have some kind of mix of businesses. I think that's critical in today's space. But now you've got buying power, perhaps with your wholesale or synergies. And that's really kind of what the goal is. But I think everybody's bringing up some really good points. One is you got to put in the work. There's no doubt about that. You got to have success in your first one, right? And then 2, I love what Poumil said, is he sat there with his partner and they put together a plan. You know, and I don't think it has to be rocket science, but you got to have that plan in how you're going to do this. And not only does, I think personally, it helps you as an owner, but it makes your ideas so much easier when you go to a bank and a financier, and there might be something kind of wonky on the deal that you need them to overlook. But if you've got the strategic plan, it makes it so much simpler.
So you mentioned, right. How do you leverage the current store? What could you expand on that? Sorry,
Yeah,
Poumil.
sure. No, absolutely. I mean, Poumil, you probably experienced this. Maybe you didn't, but I mean, you kind of probably explored this, where the cash flow of your existing business can either serve as an asset that you can cross guarantee or collateralize and essentially say, hey, listen, we've got equity in this business, cash flow in this business. We want to use some of that to buy this next one. Or you are having cash on the balance sheet that you've been saving and you say, hey, I'm going to use that. Or it could also be simply as, listen, I'm going to buy this asset separately, but bank, I want you to just look at what do I've got on my existing business that's basically proving, it's like, you know, hey, I'm proving what I can do. And there's so many different ways to do that. People sometimes get a little scared of that, and I can understand why, but if you're having those educated discussions with the bank on why it's a good strategy and how to position it correctly for you, you can have a tremendous amount of success. And so, you know, I always tell people, when you get in your first store, you got to have that hard cash. And there's different ways that you can leverage programs that Live Oak Bank can use on how to make that equity down payment work. But once you get in that first one and you start to have success, now you've got a performing asset. That's such a huge tool to be able to grow and expand from there.
Poumil, you were gonna.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had 2 points. One of was just, growing on Greco's point, was that if you're going to the bank and leveraging the cash flow from your first pharmacy, and I think a good sign to see if it's a right decision for you, the bank would probably just tell you, because if the bank says no to that, that means your first business is not running well. So that means you probably shouldn't buy the second one, right?
It's so simple.
So I think, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, and then second point was that, one thing that I think every one store owner should ask themselves is if they were to step away from their one store for 7 to 10 days, would it burn to the ground? And if their answer is anywhere close to yes, then it's probably not a good time to buy a second store.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
Those are really good points, Poumil. I mean, like you have to be into the mindset that I don't have to be there all the time. Back in the day when my dad ran a store, he would never go away for anything longer than a week. I mean, I very early in my career of owning multiple stores, I'd go away for 2 weeks. And the reason I would do that was because, I mean, as you know, there gets to be this point like of taking time off, and I don't know if you need to take 2 weeks off, but there's this thing about 10 days off that's really the refresher when you can have a reset. And if you can do that with your business, then that is a good sign. And it's also probably good, that the bank understands that. And back to say the same thing again, this whole cash flow thing in terms of leverage, I wouldn't have been able to have, let's say that, the 30 stores if I did, if it wasn't the leverage of the cash flow of my businesses. Like for me, the first store that I bought by myself, I actually matched the price of CVS to buy this store. It was a $5 million pharmacy. I paid $1.3 million for it, but it made a ridiculous amount of cash flow. I paid it off in 5 years, and that cash flow was really the
You're
engine.
still using it.
that was the engine. That was the engine that created the ability to do everything else. Because and the great thing again about your pharmacy, if you lose the cash flow that way, the long term is that now you've got and again, you don't need to have 15 stores. It could be that you just want to have 2 or 3. There's different types of multi-store owners. They each have their different levels of what you need. And because as your business grows from, let's say, 1 to 3, you can probably handle it. When it goes 3 to 5, it's like, oh gosh, now I have to have more of a centralization of management. When you go 5 plus, then I'm basically a corporate entity.
Yeah, so I guess that leads me to a couple of things, because I've heard Greco, Poumil, and Tim now. You guys started alluding to, I guess, challenges or mistakes or reasons not to. I don't know if, I mean, that's, I'm putting 3 things out there, but I mean, are there things you would have done differently? Are there reasons not to? Yeah.
I'll answer that really quickly from the bank's perspective. And Poumil, you said something that I think was pretty powerful and sometimes hard for people to hear, is to go get just a financial checkup with your existing business with the bank if you're thinking about buying a second one, right? And that doesn't have to take a very long time, but it could yield some really good insights, right? Maybe your gross margin percentage below average. Maybe your operating expenses are too high. Maybe you're over leveraged already in your business. So there's that financial checkup, right? But a lot of times, and Owen, this kind of gets to your answer, is when not to do it is if the existing business, or if the target business that you're trying to buy is going to be really far away outside your market. So meaning you can't really get there to maybe manage the staff appropriately or get them up to speed. Maybe it's a complete turnaround project and it gets, too hard to do. Or maybe you've bought 3 or 4 in a short period of time, and now you're looking to get your 5th. So it's too much growth too quickly, and you don't have enough time under each entity to see if they're successful. And that's one mistake we have seen sometimes in the space. Someone will buy, let's say they own 3, they've bought a 4th, 6 months later, now they've bought a 5th, and then, another opportunity's come up, but perhaps that 5th one that they've bought didn't turn out the way they wanted it to yet. And so now all of a sudden you've got maybe 1, maybe 2 that are just kind of struggling. You discovered some challenges. And so now it's like the others that you have are carrying those. And, I mean, this is something that, and I didn't come up with this. Actually, an owner actually explained this to me. He was like, I can identify who my A, B, and C players are. And I kind of have an idea about, do I need to cut my C players, essentially get rid of stores that aren't performing because they didn't work out? How do I turn those into B players? Can I do it? And then how do I get my B players to be A players, or am I just okay with B players? And that kind of gets into what we're talking about, where what not to do is, if you're going to be a multi-store owner, and this is just in my personal opinion, if you're going to be a multi-store owner, you do have to change the mindset a little bit from that first ownership to being now more of like a running like a little mini corporate entity. And that might mean that you have to have an infrastructure in place, or at least a playbook and plan for that. And what not to do is just to essentially do the opposite of that, which is just rely on, hey, each of them will operate independently and I hope for the best. And that just doesn't work, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned is that we can be convinced today of some really good ideas, and you have to, if you're going to go to the multi-store route, you've got to have the ability to have, let's say accountants, banks, advisors, friends who are in business kind of give you, reality checks, or, in our business, we actually coined the name Bondurant in our business from this is Owen's last name, and that his Mark's dad, or excuse me, Owen's dad, who was my partner, and Greco, Mark Bondurant, Mark would always be the guy to tell me why not to do something. I was the optimistic guy. I wanted to go do this, and Mark was, and he was never Eeyore, like he's not an Eeyore person at all, but he had to give me, these are the risks that we're going through to make a decision, so that I wasn't doing it for those reasons like ego and, maybe I'm bored. We hadn't done a store in a couple of years. I just need to do something, or even the fear of not being successful, of stopping it. Like you're talking about the A, B, and C stores, or whatever, how you want to rank them. If you got a store that's sucking your cash, you need to get the heck out of that, because like it's hard for a chain to turn around a crappy store. I mean, it just is. I mean, so if you're going to start off on it to be multi-store, your first few stores, most important, grab the cash. Then, like for me, I was able, and I don't know where you are, Poumil, on this, is then you start having that extra cash flow leverage that you can do some riskier things. Like one of the things that we did were, we backfilled some stores, which ended up being like the best thing in the whole world. Like where a chain would buy, a really successful independent, and then you've got this ability to go start something from scratch. They're a little bit lower cost thing to do, but
they're a startup.
They're a startup, and the banks are going
lower cost than buying, basically.
They don't want to give you a lot of money for a startup. I mean, that's not really their thing. It's to buy existing businesses typically, even though you can get a startup loan. Yeah. But I'm just saying, ideally, like you've got to think of it as a business, and making money in cash is going to make a lot of the problems go away, and not being afraid to let your ego, like don't have the ego that I'm going to do things just because no one else is going to care about your ego. Your bank does not care about that. They want you to be an honest person. They want you to make money. And if you can prove that you do, they'll give you as much money as you possibly want.
It's true.
And the ability of using a bank instead of an outsider, like everybody, even me, I was thinking I should go get, funding from other people to do it. That is the highest cost of money, to have partners and other people into it. You can, if you have a good business and you're a good business person, I used a bank and a wholesale group to help me grow my business. And I think you guys can do the same thing.
Right. So, obviously owning multiple stores comes with its benefits, right? You have a better buying power, and, if different, like compounding for us, we can do it from a central site and do it at both sites. But from what I've seen from my just personal experience with few friends who own other pharmacies, I know one of them I just know particularly, who likes to just look at other store owners and think, get into this mentality that, oh, if he can do it, that I can do it. But if you're not running your one store properly, then having two, bad stores is better than, it's worse than having one good store, right? So I think that's another thing. Like getting into a competition is probably, it's never a good thing, right?
Yeah, don't compete against yourself.
Yeah, you don't need
exactly
to compare yourself. Yeah, you don't need to compare
anybody,
yourself to others. I agree with that, Poumil, and trying to, again, going back to what I think you and Tim have said is what do you want, right? You know,
Right.
some people like working in the store, and maybe they should just have
Right.
one store and
Mhm.
really make it really
Yep.
good. Other people
true.
want to travel or go play golf, or they have kids, or, you know, they want to be at home. Well, like, build something that allows you to achieve that. You know, just because someone you know has 10 stores doesn't mean you need to have 10. You know, 3 might meet your goals. And so,
Right.
like, you don't have to go after that. And you know, you also don't have to get stores just because they're there. You know, I think what I like
Right.
you were saying is that you kind of added a store that filled in a gap that you didn't currently have. There were synergies
Right.
there, right? You can share inventory, you can share employees, but also you
Mhm.
were able to capitalize on the compounding out of both stores. You're able to add
Right.
your vitamin stuff and et cetera. Like, I see a lot of people, they're just like, well, like, I know this guy and his store's for sale, so I'm buying it. But,
Yeah, that's
you know, is there
But
a
it's-
reason to buy this? Like, does this fit into your goals? Does this fit
Yeah.
into your plan? Like, you know, like, you know, actually try to, like, you don't just have to buy it to buy it.
That's true. And sometimes opportunity does knock though, right? And
It
it
does.
kind of gets,
Yeah.
and that's where what everybody's saying here is that if you've started the first one correctly and you're at least having a strategy and a plan, it makes it a lot better if you have the right team around you to take that risk. If it seems like on paper it hasn't been long enough, right? But if the opportunity is right, either for a backfill or for an acquisition, you know, it makes the pathway a little simpler. And I think what the common mistake a lot of people, in my personal opinion, will do is they won't go out and just take a little bit of time. Poumil, it sounds like you and your partner did this, to go out there and
Mhm.
find the different options for resources and what might be the best way to go. And you know, it doesn't have to take like a month, right? I mean, you can get answers pretty quick. I mean, the amount of information that's out there for you. And my team's always helpful, always willing to help somebody in a short 30-45 minute phone call about what their options might be. But knowing those types of things can really, really, really help when those opportunities do knock and you have to jump on them quickly. You know, if it's a fire sale type of thing, that's a different situation. But sometimes we've helped people, they bought their first store and 6 months in, it just so happens the next store over, because it's such a great opportunity for synergies, they come up. It doesn't happen all the time, but in those situations, you got to be able to strike and have the right team around you to advise you whether it's the right thing or do.
That happened to me when you know, after I bought my first one, and then I opened the second one, which is a backfill. I had the opportunity to do yet another backfill. And now I did what Greco's saying. I waited 6 months. I had this other thing digested to make sure I was okay before I did it, even though I thought it was a slam dunk, great idea. You know, you have to have a little bit, you know, and well, I've learned patience and not patience. Like, you have to have the ability to, you know, to make decisions quickly. You lose, like you said, you don't need a month to figure out if it's a good idea. You know, typically a lot of the stuffs are your internal, you know, just feelings.
Yeah.
But like, if you're going to go do that, I would go about, again, what we were saying earlier, you got to run your first store really well. And one of the things is, my pet peeve is, like, your finances that you handle, and your accounting that you do, and how you operate your current store is what I think Greco needs in order to give you more money. Like, you can't go give him this big old pile of mess. Like, you know, you go into your, you know, your homework's all over the place, and give Greco and his team to go figure out, how am I doing, when you know, my margin one month says 50 and the next month it says 10%. And then, you know, you're not even cash basis. You're trying to do almost accrual, and it's a mess. So, you know, when Poumil said about, like, talking to your bank, or you said talking to your bank about, you know, how am I doing? Like, that's one of the things that you can get those eye openers, because I'm sure, like, Greco and his team are going to tell you, dude, this has to be better. Like, if you want me to make decisions, you know, and that can be not a flag to not give them a loan, but you can help them.
Well,
like,
I mean,
don't do that.
You can't just go to the bank and say, I'm making money. Like you need to show it on paper.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, like it doesn't work that way. Like,
Well,
if it ain't on paper, it didn't actually happen.
well, and in today's environment, Poumil, you know, and Tim, and you got Owen, you guys know this. I mean, I look at the pharmacy now. My wife's a business owner, not in pharmacy, but you know, the thought of her not having clean numbers to her is like she would panic. And she's in a very high margin business. Now in pharmacy, the margins, let's just call it what they are. They can be challenging and compressed. And I think more today and leading up to 2024, what's going to happen when the DIR fee changes and how they're taken out. If people aren't running clean numbers and if it's garbage in, garbage out, I mean, that just to me is,
Yeah.
those days are long gone.
yeah.
I mean, you gotta have your numbers clean. You've gotta have your things in order. Because if you don't, forget even just the bank. I mean, just your own personal well-being of knowing how your business is performing. I just don't think, I think those days are long gone.
Well, and I mean, not only do we have the DIR cliff coming up, but also, I mean, interest rates are higher. We've got inflation. I mean, you know, and the compressed margins. So we do have like several things going on. Now, on the flip side to that, I mean, that can be opportunity because, you know, other people might be scared to get into the market or to expand, or, I mean, you grew the second time right after the financial crisis, right? And because it was a great time to grow. Like, I mean, people were putting everything on hold. So
well, and
like,
Poumil, you bought yours during COVID, correct? I mean, essentially, when the pandemic first hit.
True.
One of the great things about healthcare is the fact that, you know, it is a fairly, you know, I don't know what the right term is, but you know, we handle the financial crises pretty well. We don't get these great swings of like margins and business because of anything. It's just kind of it's a plodding along, and you know, but there's always these changes with, like you say, the PBMs or DIRs or the governments or COVID. If you know, my thing I've learned is that pharmacy has changed and it'll continue to change. Your wife's business, Greco, I'm sure, and she's in a different thing. It's changing all the time. You have to be able to recognize that your business is not going to be this, again, back to the, you know, buying rental properties. We're not talking about buying rental properties. This is a business that needs to be managed, and you need to be smart about what's going on in pharmacy. I mean, it's not for everybody, but if you have the skills of being, you know, okay, of working with other people and that you got some business acumen, I mean, you can do this because there's definitely opportunity.
Well, it all comes
definitely
back to what you and Poumil said at the beginning, you know, putting the right team, planning, right? Like sitting there and go, are my people trained? Have I delegated everything out? What holes are missing? What do I need to do to go meet my goals? Like, it's all that, like, thinking through it. And it doesn't take, this isn't a, you know, 18-month thing. This is a, okay, you know, over the next quarter, what are we going to get better at? Like,
well,
if you do those things,
Well,
you'll have time to change. And like, I mean, to his point, every business changed. I mean, look at Apple. I mean, heck, if Apple was still just selling computers, they'd be bankrupt.
Yeah.
I mean, they sell phones and music now. And I mean, like, they're not the same company that they were. They adapted.
Right. And, you know, that actually brings up a good point. You know, when we were planning, obviously, you know, I just wanted to touch base on what you said was the mistakes. So, you know, one of the mistakes I would say we made was that we initially just looked at it as a similar store, in a sense that we tried implementing some of the policies at the second store, which didn't work out because the population was different. And, you know, even the employees were different. So we sort of had to recreate, like, you know, sort of reinvent the wheel for the second store. So, you know, I guess one of the takeaways was that, you know, even if you go in, like, you know, with the best plan and spend hours, you know, it's not going to be just rainbows and unicorns. You're going to run into problems no matter what. You know, it's just that make sure you're just flexible. So to speak.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, Paula, because yeah, I mean, like you said, you can make the biggest plans in the world, but I mean, you get in there and you learn something new, you know, then
Exactly.
do something different. Because yeah.
And I think one thing that's important is we're talking about buying and growing, right? But eventually you also have to exit. I mean,
Well,
eventually,
Right.
I mean, or perhaps
Yeah.
you have structures where you want to exit out and the minority owner or partner wants to take over full ownership, and then that divests you to go do something different, right? And so goes back to the planning, the proper structure, the proper financial tracking, so that you can achieve those types of things. Because we help in the financing space, sometimes we'll help an individual, he's the sole owner and he owns 5 or 4 or 2, like in, you know, or however many. Then we have some where they're owner in 2 and they're minority partnerships. They have partnerships in all these different other ones, right? And I think what is eye-opening to a lot of them is sometimes of understanding, well, if I want to get out of one, how does that work? Or if I want to take over one of those that I'm minority, how is that going to work? How does that impact my plan to get into other situations? Who are the minority owners in those? And if I divest that to them, what are their odds of being able to achieve financing given their role or their positions? So as much as we're talking about growing and buying and things, we also have to be thinking about when we eventually try to exit out of them, whether it be for the goal of, you know, I know some individuals whose goal is to get out and sell completely to private equity, and that's great. Others, I want to be able to pass on a legacy to my family because I have sons or daughters that are in pharmacy school. So all those types of things need to get into the conversation too. And I think, you know, it goes back to, it's hard because just like planning for retirement in our personal lives or planning for the summertime, right? I mean, if we all have kids, you think about planning for the summertime for their activities in March, it seems crazy. But if we don't do that now, before we know it, it comes up on us, and then we're scrambling. And that's the worst time to make important decisions, is when you're forced to.
Yeah, that's a good point, Greco. I guess from an exit standpoint, I mean, there's some structure things you can do, right? You know, there's the whole corporate structure, right? So, you know, if you're in different entities, sometimes that allows you to divest one easier. But then it all comes back down to, you know, having plans in the financials. So if you have a good store, it'll be easier to divest out of it. Right. And if you have your accounting correct and you have the numbers correct and you understand the business, well, then it's easier to put together a package to put out on the market. And guess what? More people are going to want it. So spending that time to kind of make that business better and making sure you have the right people. I mean, sometimes you might get a partner who isn't the right person. Well, they get hard to let go because you're your partner.
Yeah.
And so
That's true.
The right decision may be to get out of that business. And even if, you know, it's not for amount that you exactly right. I mean, you want to get out of that. So, I mean, I do think you have to look at the exit strategy, but if you're doing all the things along the way to make your business better, track your business, well, it also might create opportunities. People might come to you to buy your business. So you might end up selling when you're not even expecting it because you have a good business.
Hey guys, I want to ask because this is a trend that I'm starting to see more, where individuals are going into multi-states. And sometimes it's for a strategy because either that's where opportunities lie, or perhaps different reimbursement models based on Medicaid. But what's the group's thought on that? I mean, you know, managing from multiple states. What does everybody think about that?
Well, they've done that.
Yeah, I've owned stores in multiple states at the same time. So the most I ever had at the same time were like in 3 different states. And the nice thing is there's different reimbursement models. I mean, it's basically pharmacy. The challenge is to get there and to create the same impact and create the same culture that you have in your existing organization. So there's, you know, if it's a good business and you're willing to commit to spend on it, yes, you can go to a different state. I mean, you could. I think that's really back to, you know, sitting down, really, what am I trying to do? And you know, it's all your own personal risk tolerance. Like a lot of it is, you know, like what really do you want to do? How do you want to leverage? And back to what I said to start with is like, you to do any of those things, you have your first store, your second store have got to make money, because you have to be able to withstand the something bad happen. Like you can't just do this for hopes and dreams and what did you say, unicorns and rainbows or whatever. Like it comes down to like black and white stuff. I mean, think of it as like your tax return. That's how it all works.
And it is more difficult, right? I mean, coming back to what he said about the culture, like you can't go get your hands on it as often. So you had better have like numbers and like a feel to see, okay, is something going awry here? You know, like,
you need a good pick there.
You need a good manager.
You really need a good pick there. That, I mean, that's the only way you can go in other stores. Like you and the pick,
and also
the same page.
And I think geographically, I think it also, you know, that brings up a good point too geographically, because if let's say just in New Jersey, if you live in North Jersey and you're about, you know, 30 minutes away from Manhattan, then it makes sense versus if you're right dead in middle of Texas and you're trying to buy something in Wyoming, you know, that's something different too. So
for us, it was Ohio, Illinois, and Missouri.
Yeah, I've made them. I don't know if it's a mistake, but like mine were not contiguous states. I mean, it was boom, boom, boom. So it was like, oh my gosh, I could drive through places to get to them, but it wasn't like me driving within, let's say, my radius 150 miles or whatever. You know, like planning can allow you to do that now, and that can, like, if you know what that number is, I'll tell you, it's much. Like before I did multiple states, I bought a store 100 miles away to just see, could I handle buying a store that wasn't like me getting up in the middle of the night, going to, you know, to let's say my store got broken into or that I had to go work because somebody is sick. Like 100 miles in my head was, oh, well, that's kind of a pain in the butt, right? It ended up that, you know, we figured it out because we really had decent pharmacists that allowed us to do that. And we also felt like, again, when we were buying it, you know, if you're buying a good business, your risks of selling it, or your advantage is that you can sell a good business. Like if you're going to go buy a guy who's not making cash flow, the ability to sell that to someone else is not very good. Yeah. Like the hopes and the dreams kind of stores are.
That's
really hard.
That's a really good point, Greco. Like, I mean, you could take a risk for a store that's like in your area where maybe, you know, doctors and you can get involved in the community and you can hands-on go grow that store. I mean, if the thing's 2 states over, I mean, you don't know anyone, so you had better make sure this is a good business that you're buying. Because the risk goes up, and you also better make sure you have good processes, because when you have good people, but if they don't know what to do, they ain't going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, that's something, you know, I've always felt that managing people are sometimes just as equally different than managing a business. I mean, anybody that's coached a youth sports team knows that trying to get people to kind of follow this plan can be hard. You know, what do you guys suggest as far as, I mean, have you guys explored where you bonus individuals? I mean, I've heard a gamut of ideas and strategies to get the staff to buy into the goal of what the individual owner has or they have in their other stores. Have you guys seen that, or have you experienced that where you guys are, you know, what do you guys think it is? Is it bonusing? Is it just putting together processes? I mean, is it ruling with an iron fist? I mean, what is it, right? I mean,
so, you know, just to go back on the multi-state point, you know, one of the things I would I would think and look into is if I have one trusted employee that's willing to relocate if they have no
That's great.
ties and
Yep.
stay
Mm.
and is
Yeah.
able to go into
Yeah,
that store
that's-
and
yep.
sort of be your eyes and ears, So I thought like if you have somebody like that, then and the other store you're getting it on fire sale, then it might be a good synergy in that sense. But
That's really
in
good.
terms of both, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, I was just gonna say, just to piggyback on what you just said, that, having someone that'll relocate or that can relocate, if it's you or even your partner or somebody else, that is really how you could do that. Like in my instance, I had Owen's dad who was like, his kids were all, graduated from college, and he had the bandwidth to drive 5 hours over to St. Louis. So like my ability to go do that was because I had a key person who could go do that. Like if you're not that person who's flexible to do that, you can't do it. But if
Well,
you do
and
have a
got-
key person that you're going to hire, but
Paul, I'll let you finish your point, but one thing, I know a gentleman, I won't name his name, but he does that with his network from pharmacy school. He's
Mm.
got individuals that he's maintained friends with in his fraternity, in his pharmacy school.
yeah,
And some are dispersed in strategic areas. And he essentially forms a kind of a little co-op or partnership with them. And that individual is the boots on the ground. They get an equity ownership in the store. Now, that's not always for everybody, right? Because we know how partnerships can work, but we forget sometimes, I think, our network is big just from the pharmacy school. And Pommel, you're an example of that.
that's true.
Right. And, I mean, Greco, that was actually the point I was going to make, was that I've known few owners who is what they do is that they'll give like 15% or 10% profit share or something like that, so that there's an incentive for the PIC or whoever the manager is for the store to do really well. And you can be sort of an absentee owner, which even though there's no such thing in pharmacy.
But
But yeah.
my dad, I agree with that, Pommel. But my dad would always tell you, you can put in equity or you can do a profit sharing thing, you can do bonuses. However, if you don't have good processes and well-trained people,
Yep.
they can't meet the bonus.
Mhm.
They can't do it. So he
Mhm.
always said, get a process, manage the people to the process, show them what a good job looks like, have them show you what a good job looks like. And then from there, they should be able to continue doing that. And he's like, and if you see them make a mistake, especially in the learning phase, you need to say something. And that's where it gets difficult when you start doing multi-store ownership across other states, is you can't be there to tell people, hey, you didn't greet people the right way. Hey, I want you to answer this phone differently. Like, you're not there. So you have to have someone who goes in and goes, that knows your processes really well and implements those, or else, it's not going to work. And that's the challenge that starts getting out there.
Well, and one of the mistakes you could make is when you buy someone else's store, their processes are a lot different than yours, and you don't know what hands-on
Right.
that former owner had. Like, I just went through a general manager change at one of my places, and I'm guessing that he was the person who would actually, open the mail, let's say. And as you know, in your mail comes some checks. When he left, there was no one in place to open the mail. I just assumed in my head that they opened the mail and they put the checks in the bank. One day I went over there and there's like all these things sitting there because that was no one really did it. And so like when you're buying something, like even you buy something, you as the guy who's buying it, you got to spend time in there to really just make sure the basic things happen, because we can assume that everybody is gonna, put new toilet paper on the wall when we're out. But a lot of people they just don't get it, because Mary always came in at the middle of the night and put the toilet paper in there because we had a cleaning crew. Well, the cleaning crew's gone when you buy a store. You are the cleaning crew, you're responsible, and you can't just assume everybody knows what they're gonna do. So you kind of have to, like, not and this isn't saying that anybody's like ignorant or stupid or anything. This is just that you don't know until you get in there what's really going on, and
Right.
some of the basic things that's in the planning. You got to make sure, like, how do we get cash? How do we get money into the bank? How do we get our PBM checks? How do we reconcile this stuff? That's where I'm going to go back to what Owen says. That's why processes that you have to be able to know what those basic things are, so that you can teach those new employees.
Yep.
That's what you do, and it may be different.
And that circles us all the way back to the very beginning of what Poumil said. He got the hang of things, and I think what you meant by that is you knew all these little details that then when you go to the second store, you can tell people. And so if
Right.
if you don't understand that, then you're not ready to go do that second store. So that's yeah.
What I'm kind of hearing is there has to be a balance between leveraging the technology that's available to us today in pharmacy to be able to see multiple locations at a touch of a button, a balance between that and then the physical presence and leadership that's required to make sure that the people, the customer, everything's getting treated appropriately. We can't rely too much on one, too much on the other. It has to be a balance. I mean, that's kind of what I'm hearing both you guys say.
Like we have a dashboard that'll give you all those key metrics, but if you don't go do anything about them, like,
yeah, that's fair.
Nothing's going to change. It's going to just keep getting worse. So yeah, you got to go lead, and the technologies to help you, identify things that then you, through your knowledge, are able to go there and go, okay, this is the problem. Here's where it would be.
Right.
I'm going to go back and retrain people. So we're coming up on an hour. We've talked about a lot. And we've got a good amount of people. I don't know if there's questions. I haven't seen any come in, but when we do have the ability to take those questions and answer them. And if you don't, I mean, you certainly can find all of us. Our website's independentrxconsulting.com. If you reach out there, you can schedule an appointment with us. Greco, I don't know the best way to.
Yeah, I mean, everybody can, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to our website, search Live Oak Bank and search our team. You can find me on there. I'm happy to chat. I'll type my email address in and cell phone number in the chat. For anybody that might be attending NCPA multi-store ownership, we'll have a booth there. One of my colleagues is going to be there as well. And we're here to help people, and we're always happy to take that consultation 30-minute call to talk about what the goals are and how we can help you achieve, if the goal is to own multi-stores, or how to divest the stores too.
Yeah, and we're also recording this, so we'll be emailing this out with contact info and everything, and we'll be putting it up on YouTube and so forth. So if you need to go find us, you can. We did have a couple questions come in. One is a backfill when you purchase a store that sold its scripts to a big chain and reopen the independent in the old location? I have this opportunity. Yes. So, when an independent sells to, let's say, CVS, they typically close down that store and move the scripts. Okay. Well, people weren't going to the CVS for a reason. And so now there's a void in the market. So as long as there's enough volume, those tend to be really, really good opportunities. It's better than just doing a straight up startup.
And the only risk of those is just making sure that the business that you're replacing actually had a really good business. What you'll find is that you can probably replace that store, but let's say the store was a $2 million store. $2 million store is not really a great store in today's marketplace. If you're only filling, or your sales are $2 million, that's not something that'd get me excited to do a backfill. Maybe 3.5 million or higher is kind of the number that makes sense, because you're probably going to get, maybe in the first year 2 million, then the next year maybe it's 2.5 to 3, and you can grow it because of what he's saying. You're replacing something, but backfills are great.
Yeah, and you said like what percentage of scripts? I mean, we typically see right out of the gate, kind of what, 30 to 30%,
It's
and
all-
then
it's
maybe,
all based on timing.
yeah.
It's all based on timing. If you do it within the first 6 months, you could
could get
get
100.
100%. If you wait 2 years, maybe now 30%. I mean, it's the closer you get to when it happens, the greater your percentage of retaining.
Another question, how are you seeing clients operating, managing with shrinking reimbursement? Well, so there's only 3 levers in a pharmacy. There's more revenue, there's improving your cost of goods, and there's payroll. Well, so it's got to fall into one of those 3. So on the revenue side, it's diversifying revenue, like Poumil added compounding, right? And e-commerce or vitamins. Okay. But like people are adding clinics, they're doing point of care testing, they're, doing diabetic education, smoking cessation, they're, consulting, they're adding compounding, they're doing long-term care, they're expanding their geographic area, right? So, diversifying your revenue, adding vitamins, kind of moving. I think you've got to diversify your business. Like trying to live just off retail is difficult.
We see some businesses actually stop doing brands,
Yeah.
Where you'll just not carry the brands because you're losing money or whatever on it. And you're just going to say, hey man, you should mail away for that. Anything that you can do to keep your margins up is what you should do.
Yeah. And then you figure out ways to buy better or make your margin. Well, guess what? Compounding, for example, makes your margin better. Adding 340B, like I think you've just got to explore different ways to find more profitable business.
You're syncing technology sources. I mean, like all those things that make it easier to do business with you are ways that you've just got to change.
And your biggest, expense outside of drugs is payroll. So we've got to figure out ways to do things more efficiently, right? We just did a webinar on the MAS for compounding, which helps people, do more compounds with less people. Well, I mean, that goes for everything. MedSync, you can control things, which means you can do it more efficiently. Like you've got to find ways, use text messaging, paying online, like finding ways to do things more efficient is absolutely critical at this point, because if you add revenue or diversify revenue, but then you just pay more people, you've made no more money. So we're happy to, we could probably talk to you for 3 hours on this topic.
That should probably be the next webinar. We could talk for hours.
Yeah.
I'll add one thing from the bank's perspective on that. If you're looking to buy your first store, the very first thing you need to think about is not over leveraging it. That's one of the biggest things I think I see people that happens is they'll get over leveraged, and then they're dealing with this gentleman's question, which is a shrinking reimbursement, and now they're having to try to work it. But if and I'm just looking from the bank's perspective of ownership, right? Is that if you started, and sometimes it's hard because if you bought a store 5 years ago, the landscape of what it was like then to today is much different. But so I'm talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
It really starts with that, not being over leveraged with it. And then Owen, to your point, you're right. Are you reconciling your claims properly? Are you managing inventory? Do you know how many turns you have on your inventory? That's critical. Are you purchasing appropriately? Do you have perpetual inventory? And are you managing your staff? And what are you doing to grow the business? It's all about increasing gross profit per script. It's it's the name of the game.
And on that inventory side, Greco, I mean, really, if a lot of people will make the excuse of not doing any perpetual or any inventory because it takes so much time. Okay, here's something everybody can do in a weekend. Just do your brand inventory. Do your brand inventory. That's going to be most of your stuff, and that's where you get into the biggest problem. Look at anything that you've got on the shelf that's more than $500. Know what the heck that is, because the other stuff's cheap. It doesn't really matter. Spend your time on stuff that you can impact quickly and also repeatable. Like a guy just asked us, can we repeat our website, because he's trying to worry about processes. One of the things you have to do with your processes, you have to make them easily repeatable. like one of the things for an inventory that, back to Owen's dad, Mark, which I guess really he should be on this call maybe instead of me, but from a process thing, like he would have like, if someone's putting something on the shelf that there's more than 3 bottles, check the inventory, for instance, because like, why do we really need 3 bottles of this
Right.
stuff? Usually those things happen because we were out of it today and then Mary got mad, and we make these emotional decisions about our inventory, which you don't need to do that. You just need to say, sorry to Mary that I don't have it. We'll get it tomorrow, but you don't then jack up your inventory to have like $2,000 worth of something that you're going to use second quarter instead of first quarter. It's just, you gotta.
And Tim, you can also just put Mary on autofill too, right?
Well, God, you need to put Mary on.
You can just put
Matt.
Absolutely.
You need to put Mary on
Right.
autofill. Or again, if Mary is getting that brand name thing that you're losing money on, send her to mail order, dude. Like the
Right.
ideas of us thinking that we need to fill every prescription is archaic. That is not how the consumer thinks anymore. You got to go here to get this, there to get this. We need to provide great service and get paid for it. And you can do that without, don't let the PBMs like manage your business. You need to manage the business.
Right.
There's a
Our
great
website,
question.
by the way, is Independent RX Consulting, and we can help you with that. Greco, I think you wanted to answer a question here.
Yeah, there's a great question on here. Jared asked, any thoughts on how to structure multiple stores? Do you prefer one corporate umbrella, or is it better to have each pharmacy as a standalone entity? Poumil, I mean, I guess, well, I don't know if this is overstepping here, but did you guys set up different entities? You don't have to tell us the type, but did you guys set up different structures?
Yeah. So yeah, we did set up different entities. I mean, just from liability perspective, I think it's just smarter to do 2 different entities instead of just having one, because if God forbid if something happens to one, then if it's under one structure, one entity, then they can go and reach out to your other pharmacy too. So it's always smarter to just put businesses under different entities.
The other thing that comes out is in terms of it helps with your banking and your exit strategy.
Yeah.
If you've got your pharmacies in one entity, then the financials are just for this unit. We don't have to get it all combobbled into all this other stuff. It's very clean, and it's easy to get rid of an entity that way. It can cost a little bit more on the tax stuff, but the amount of money you save by having really good visibility to what it is, it allows you to have junior partners or whatever into the thing. You as the guy who's, let's say, investing all these, you can put your ownership in a holding company. I mean, like, you can make it easy for yourself, so you don't have to put in like all these different, tax returns to it. It could just be like, in my case, I had like just a couple of businesses, and you just roll it up. And then like when I'm talking to Greco, then Greco's like, oh, well, that makes sense. And then, again, back to leverage, then they see all the stuff you've got. But the biggest thing to me, your bank is valuable in this sense. I don't know if I'm going to say this right, Greco, so please tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Sure.
Basically, your bank creates guardrails for you. And so like he was talking about that, when that mistakes he sees us make as pharmacists is we don't give ourselves enough margin or room on that first deal. That's again the whole advantage of like when you're doing banking or financing something, you get somebody else outside to help you with those guardrails. Use that, man. You use the bank to be one of your advisors. Because I'll tell you, for me, if I didn't have like the bankers in my life that helped me do this stuff, I mean, I would have totally screwed up.
Yeah, and it was even more difficult for him back then because there wasn't a pharmacy bank.
We did not have Live Oak Bank back when I was doing my deals.
These people were like, pharmacy? Who wants to own one of those? Like, so luckily these people took the time to like figure out the business and look at his business and actually, work him through, and they're intelligent people. So, yeah.
From the bank's perspective, absolutely, you want to have, I think, 9 out of 10 times separate structures, because that way we can look at everything individually, whether it rolls up to a management company or not, that's fine. But if they're all separate, that's really important, because then we can kind of see individually how each one is working, and we can see, and we can help you guide which one you might need to, take a longer look at. And there's a question in there about if a pharmacy isn't making much, banks tend to look at the most recent P&Ls. That is something that's true. And Tim, this kind of goes to your point about the guardrail. I think you said that correctly, right? The bank's going to kind of either set the guardrails or open the gates for you, right? I mean, that's kind of what the bank's there. The bank's there to be a partner. We're there to be a partner.
Yeah.
We obviously have to manage risk. I mean, that's just what banks will do, right? And I think a bank that understands pharmacy, like what we do, we are willing to go into areas of risk that others might not, where I think the one question in the box is asking about, what year, what time frame are we going to look at? Well, if we look at the most recent tax year and it's not performing very well, and we look at the year before that and it's not performing very well, the odds are that there's a track record there of things not performing very well. So now all of a sudden, if we have 6 months interims and boom, it's blowing up. Well, why did that happen? What caused it? And how do we know that that's sustainable and repeatable? And how do you, as the potential buyer or owner, how do you ensure that that's sustainable and repeatable? And if the storyline makes sense, then, there's a pathway there. But if it doesn't, and you've got a performing business on the most recent year that is not doing very well, then that can be a challenge, right? I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. But
does the opportunity, like if you have one store and you have an opportunity to buy another one, does that second opportunity factor into it does factor, right?
Well, we always want to look at that other opportunity in itself, right? And what is that opportunity doing?
Yeah.
But sometimes that opportunity might be, let's say it's a average, it's doing 17% margins. It's been managed by someone who's owned it for a long time, and they just haven't put in a lot of the work. And it's an okay deal, right? You're not getting it for a steal. You're not over leveraged. It's just okay. But in your existing businesses, you're really showing that you can perform above average margins because you're doing X, Y, and Z. Well, now maybe from a global perspective, the risk is there to be able to purchase that store, and
right,
you can then bring it up to the levels that you have. But if we will look at that second store, the target entity, what I like to call it, the target store, we will look at that and have to make informed decisions off of it. And it's just the information that we're looking at when we see that.
Okay. We got a influx of questions there. So
That
that was good. I'm glad we were able to answer them. So
Good. Thank you.
well, Poumil, thanks for taking the time out. I know you were at home with kids, so that is it's easier said. I think it might actually be easier to get away from the bench. We really appreciate you getting on, and likewise, Greco, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you guys for having us.
I've learned a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, it was good.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Have a great
Thank
rest
you.
of your week.
Thank you guys.